Hey, what's up everybody? My name's Rohan, otherwise known as the Roshan Redemption, and the topic of today's video is actually the release date for Pokemon Z, whatever Game Freak plans on calling the follow-up game to X and Y. We don't technically know that it's going to be called Pokemon Z, but just for convenience's sake in this video, I'm going to be referring to it as Pokemon Z. Also, before we get to talking about the actual release date, I just want to say that Pokemon Z is pretty much confirmed beyond a doubt, and at this point we're basically just waiting for the official announcement for the game. And the reason why I say this is that if you look at Nintendo's past behavior, they've always released a sort of follow-up or sequel game to the initial two. For instance, back in 2nd generation we had Crystal as the follow-up to Gold and Silver, back in 3rd generation the follow-up to Ruby and Sapphire was Emerald, 4th generation the follow-up to Diamond and Pearl was Platinum, and so on. And it would be really weird if Nintendo just randomly deviated from this behavior for Pokemon Z, so I'd say looking at the history of Pokemon games and their release dates indicates that there will be a Pokemon Z at some point. But also, a while back Game Freak released the designs and bios for a couple of alternate forms for Zygarde, and if they didn't release a Pokemon Z at this point, then these forms would pretty much have no point to them. So those are the reasons why Pokemon Z is pretty much confirmed at this point. I'm not going to talk about it too much in this video just because it's a subject that's been well discussed and addressed in previous YouTube videos. So if you guys want to learn more, I'll leave a link to a couple of videos from other YouTubers that discuss Pokemon Z a little bit more in depth. Alright, and with that, let's go ahead and get into the main topic of this video, and that is the release date of Pokemon Z. First of all, I want to say that it's incredibly likely that Pokemon Z is going to release sometime in 2016, and the reason for this is that if you look at the release date for all past main series Pokemon games, there's never, not even once in the history of Pokemon, been a 3-year gap or more between any two games. The longest we've ever had to wait between Pokemon games has been 2 years, which has happened multiple times in the past. Keeping in mind that Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, which of course were the last main series Pokemon games put out by Game Freak, were released in 2014, if Pokemon Z were released in 2017, then there would be a 3-year gap between Pokemon games, which would violate the release pattern that Game Freak has pretty much religiously followed over and over again. Now, obviously Game Freak could choose to deviate from previous behavior, and they could choose to have a 3-year gap between Pokemon games, so 2017 release isn't necessarily out of the question, but even still I'd say it's highly unlikely, so there's about a 95% probability that the game will be released sometime in 2016. But let's go ahead and delve a little bit deeper and talk about the specific time of year that I think Pokemon Z will be released. And to discuss this, we first need to look at the release dates for Pokemon X and Y and for Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. So when Pokemon X and Y were announced, there was a 9-month gap between the announcement and the actual release date for those games. And Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, when they were announced, there was a 6-month gap between the announcement and the release date for these games. In light of all this, I would say that the minimum amount of time that Game Freak gives us between an announcement for the game and the release date for the game is probably 6 months, which basically means that the earliest we could possibly get Pokemon Z is in summer of 2016. Even still, I don't think the game is going to come out in summer. I would say that a fall release is more likely. The reasons for this are, first of all, if you look at the release dates for X and Y, and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, they were both released in fall. And also, in general, releasing a game in the fall is just a good time because it's right before Christmas, and it gives developers just the right amount of time to blow Christmas sales out of the water. And as for a specific date, I'm personally predicting that Pokemon Z will come out on October 8th, 2016. And the reason for this is that October 8th is the second Saturday of October, which is the exact same time that X and Y were released in 2013. Well, alright folks, that is pretty much going to do it for this video. As always, if you enjoyed, be sure to drop me a like down below, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already for more Pokemon content in the future. The comment question of the day is, when do you guys think Pokemon Z is going to be released? You guys already know that I think it's going to be released on October 8th, 2016. While I highly doubt I'm actually going to get that exact date right, I would say a fall release date is the most likely option. Otherwise, I hope you all have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.